that prefab bullshit. 100, I definitely can build it because I'm building. I'm only going to cost you. That's a lot of work. What it do, E-World, Crisscrossing Wires. So, gotta ask you guys, what's better as far as on electric? And especially if you don't like a lot of noise like me. I don't like all that noise. I'm good with it. Anyway, I see a lot of ambitious builds on Facebook and DIY groups, or DIY groups all the time. And what I mean by that is I normally see guys go for the largest motor controller combination, and you know, before their bike is even finished, they're touting a lot of unbelievable specs. Well, not unbelievable, but as I said, ambitious specs. They want 600 DC line amps, 96 volts. So, you know, 60 kilowatt or so. And that's cool. But they're attempting to build these bikes on platforms that aren't going to be able to accommodate the battery to supply that 600 line amps and 60 kilowatt. You know, it's great to want that, but when you are trying to do that with a mid-drive on a dirt bike platform, and your battery compartment or where you're going to put your pack is only about yay big, good luck with all that. Now sure, you can get the highest discharge cell, the most capacity cell, and because they say they have 60 watts of discharge peak, or 100 amps, 60 amps, you start doing the math and saying, well, if I got 10p, that's 600 amps. True, those 10 cells can probably produce a burst of 600 amps, possibly, but they're damn sure not going to be able to sustain it, nor are they going to be able to produce it with the voltage above nominal, which is the main thing. So while you might be able to draw 600 amps and see 600 amps on your BMS or your app, you know, your controller app, it'll probably be 600 amps, and let's say if you're at 96 volts, which should fully charged be over 100 and some volts, you might see that 600 amps at about 80 volts, and therefore you're down in 72 volt range. So you know, you got to be able to supply those amps. Now the great thing about this platform, and why I've chosen it, is because of the battery compartment on this thing. It's that long, that tall, and about that wide. Right now it's nowhere near full as far as physically. I got a 90 amp hour in there, which is a in 72 volt system, 20S 20P P45Bs. So you know, you do the math, that's 400 cells, and that 400 cells is only taking up about half of that battery compartment. But 400 cells on another bike, good luck fitting it, you know. And 20S 20P, you know, my controller is 450 DC line amps, and I can actually supply and sustain that 450 DC line amps with a 20S 20P P45B pack. So you know, that's 20 P45Bs in parallel, and that's easy work for them. But anyway, yeah. So I am going to upgrade this thing at some point. We're going to keep the same amount of P, 20P, but we're going to go to 26S. So a little high voltage. With a high voltage, obviously we're going to get a higher RPM and a higher top speed. And man, that's if I actually even need it. And honestly, at this point, I just be doing it just for the sake of doing it and saying that I got it. I don't even know. Well, it ain't even really necessary. This bike is already doing 104 miles per hour on 72 volts. And if you got any experience with this stuff, you know that's pretty damn good for 72 volts. That is what a bike should do on 72 volts. That has a moderately decent level of power, and it's not overwhelming the battery. So when I pull 450 DC line amps, at most I get about 2 volts of sag, and 2 volts of sag is damn near perfect for those amps. Would I like to have it where it don't snatch at all? Absolutely. And I probably could do that with maybe a 40p, you know, double the size. So 180 amp hour 20S 40p pack. And yeah, 40p, the way I built my packs, them volts won't snatch at all. Now, if you're really knowledgeable about power in terms of electric power, you know that you want the best power supply you can have to run your system, power supply being the battery. And once again, that's where a whole lot of these builds fall short. They attempt to do those custom builds like that, 96 volt 500 amp DC line amps, you know, 50-some thousand watts, with a pack that's probably only good for about 18 to 20,000 watts, if that. So yeah, while you can sit around and say, yeah, you gotta, just because you got your controller set to those parameters, yeah, I got my controller set to 500 amps and at 96 volts, I'm running, you know, 50-some thousand watts. But under load, you ain't got nowhere near that. You got to see how many amps you're actually pulling at what voltage, then do that math. It's not amps times the volts that you think you got, or volts times the amps you think you got. It's that the actual volts times the actual amps. Anything else is ghost watts. Ghost watts. That's what I used to call it in amateur radio. Now, if I'm just riding this bike, you know, not hauling ass and acting a fool, man, this thing, I could get a lot of mileage on this pack. I ain't sucking 450 amps 100% of the time, and it don't take that unless you're trying to do your maximum acceleration. But shoot, this this bike with the motor that's on it and controller on level ground with not a lot of wind resistance to maintain highway speed 60-65 miles per hour. It only takes about 30-40 amps. That's not going uphill, and that's not accelerating up to 60 miles per hour. But once you get there, to maintain it. As I said, I'm going to upgrade this thing at some point to 96 volts. And honestly, I've been putting it off and putting it off. And the main reason why is because I love the software that I'm running with this controller. This ASI controller with kilowatt. That's the display that the software, and it has that display, as you can see, with all the telemetry. It's a great system, and unfortunately, this ASI controller is only good for 20S as far as the power supply it's running. Man, I wish this thing did 26S, which is 96 volts. So in order for me to go to 96 volts, I have to switch to a far driver controller. Now, I know there's a lot of far driver fans, and there's nothing wrong with far driver. Pound for pound, I like this one much better, and it's a much more expensive controller. Like I said, this BAC 8000 450 DC line amp, 840 phase. The same power control on a far driver is you get like a 72 800, something like that, whatever that, something is close in power. That controller might cost $300-400. And I could be wrong about that, but it's somewhere in there. And this controller, when it was new, was like a $1,200-1,300 controller. So, obviously, it's not just about a name. It used better components, probably better MOSFETs, better capacitors, and has better software. And to get the same level of performance from a far driver, I have to buy a much larger controller. So I'm going to most likely be running a 96 1800, which is 1800 phase amp far driver. But a 96 800, I might not be satisfied with that. This is probably this. This 72 volt 800 phase amp ASI is probably performing almost as good as 1200 phase amp far drop, because it's unlocked for one thing. So the only benefit from being unlocked is yeah, you might can tweak it a little bit more, but your field weakening, where you only allow 25%, unlocked is 50%, and that 50% helps a whole lot when you're talking about top speed. Anyway, I think I demonstrated enough, you know.